Hello, this is Dave Sugarbaker, and today is the 24th of September in the year 2023, and I have a long story that you're probably familiar with. It's from Exodus, the 32nd chapter. When the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered around Aaron and said to him, "Come, make gods for us, who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." Aaron said to them, "Take off the gold rings that are on the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me." So all the people took off the gold rings from their ears and brought them to Aaron. He took the gold from them, formed it into a mold, and cast an image of a calf. And they said, "These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt." When Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made proclamation and said, "Tomorrow shall be a festival to the Lord." They rose early the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought sacrifices of well-being. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to revel. The Lord said to Moses, "Go down at once. Your people, whom you brought up out of the land of Egypt, have acted perversely. They have been quick to turn aside from the way that I commanded them. They have cast for themselves an image of a calf and have worshipped it and sacrificed to it and said, 'These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt.' I have seen these people, how stiff-necked they are. Now let me alone so that my wrath may burn hot against them, and I may consume them, and of you I will make a great nation." But Moses implored the Lord his God and said, "O Lord, why does your wrath burn hot against your people, whom you brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians say, 'It was with evil intent that he brought them out to kill them in the mountains and to consume them from the face of the earth'? Turn from your fierce wrath. Change your mind and do not bring disaster on your people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, how you swore to them by your own self, saying to them, 'I will multiply your descendants like the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have promised I will give to you and your descendants, and they shall inherit it forever.' And the Lord changed his mind about the disaster that he had planned to bring on his people." You met my cat. She may make another appearance, I'm not sure. At sundown tonight, September 24th, at 7:29 to be exact, the most important day in the Jewish year begins. It's Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. You know, for the Jews, the day begins at sundown and then continues through the next day until the next sundown. So this evening, starting September 24th at sundown, is the beginning of Yom Kippur. 10 days ago was Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, and the days intervening between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are the high holy days of Judaism, days of reflection, doing good works, and atoning for sins. There are, I believe, 5 worship services to take place on Yom Kippur. The first one this evening, in the evening, and then the other 4 during the day tomorrow until sundown tomorrow. The worshipers fast for the whole day, beginning tonight at sundown, and for 24 hours. The Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, culminates in the blowing of the ram's horn, the shofar, as Yahweh moves from his judgment seat to his mercy seat. Yom Kippur is a time to atone for sins and to start with a clean slate as the new year begins. I've talked before about the church I served in Berkeley for 27 years. North Brae Community Church survived the Loma Prieta earthquake of 1989. There was a synagogue in San Francisco that did not survive. Its building was unsalvageable. And the congregation decided in the weeks following the earthquake to split into a San Francisco group and an East Bay group, and each would seek a new home. The East Bay group came to North Brae, and we took them in. The rabbi's office was 2 doors down the hall from my own office, and the Hebrew school was on Wednesdays. Sabbath services were on Friday night or Saturday. This arrangement seemed to work very well until the High Holy Days. Now, the activities of the High Holy Days mean swollen attendance. It meant 3 times the number of people that the congregation would usually have. And it meant that they needed larger facilities than we had at North Brae. So the group that we hosted at the church for the other 50 some weeks of the year had to go find a much larger auditorium for their High Holy Days. And a smaller Jewish congregation that was going to swell to approximately the size of our sanctuary, about 350, they moved in for those important 10 days only. Space, is so tight for the High Holy Days that each Jewish congregation requires a reservation weeks ahead of time. There are tickets sold for the celebration of the High Holy Days. Maybe we ought to consider that for Easter ourselves. The sanctuary at North Brae Community Church was set up from the get-go to have 3 interchangeable altar pieces: a cross, a menorah, and a torch. The Jewish congregation that was going to celebrate the High Holy Days with us brought in their large wooden ark that held their Torah scroll, and they set up for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Now, I don't know if this arrangement continues, but I know that for a number of years, the Christians met in one section of the North Brae facility and the Jews in another. And the big issue was parking if we both happened to have something going on at the same time. One Sunday morning, a day or 2 after Yom Kippur, so Yom Kippur this year would have been on a Friday or so, North Brae was at worship Sunday morning in the sanctuary at the same time that several members of the Jewish congregation came by to pick up the ark that held their Torah. As they came into the choir room off the side of the chapel, our choir sang the anthem of the day, which was the Kol Nidra, a traditional song that begins the first Yom Kippur evening service, and that's going to be held tonight. The Kol Nidra is a central beginning point for services of Yom Kippur. And these Jews who were kind of in the area to pick up their ark got to hear our choir singing a traditional, wonderful part of their opening of the Day of Atonement. In part, the Kol Nidra says, "All vows, we regret them all. All shall be absolved, canceled. Let our prohibitions not be considered prohibitions, and let our oaths not be considered oaths. May the entire congregation of the children of Israel be forgiven, for all the people acted unwittingly. Pardon, I beseech you, the wrongdoing of this people, in keeping with the greatness of your kindness, as you have forgiven this people from Egypt until now." And the Lord said, at the very end of the Kol Nidre, and the Lord said, I have pardoned in accordance with your words. I tried to think of a parallel to these Jews coming to pick up their ark after the High Holy Days were over, and hearing the Kol Nidre sung by the church that had hosted them. It would be something like hearing a Jewish congregation singing Silent Night on December 27th. In the story from Exodus, after just 30 days of wandering, having just escaped from the Egyptian army at the Reed Sea, the children of Israel come to Sinai, the mountain of God. Their leader, Moses, goes up the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights to consult with God about the new rules by which this community will be governed. By their estimation, Moses is late in returning. He might never come back, they think. And the children of Israel are extremely anxious. Who will be our leader now? And as a small measure of comfort, they ask Aaron to create a tangible object as a focus of worship, a golden calf. The story then cuts to Moses wrapping up his 40-day consultation with God. He doesn't know he's late. God becomes extremely angry with the children of Israel for falling so quickly and easily into idolatry. 30 days out of bondage in Egypt, and already they're looking to other gods than Yahweh. God calls them stiff-necked. I had to look that up. It means stubborn and opinionated. Stiff-necked people are set in their ways. They don't need anyone else's opinion. They don't look to the left or the right, just straight ahead, convinced of the correctness of their way. Do you know any stiff-necked people these days? I know I do. God announces that he's going to wipe out the Hebrews and start all over building a favored new group with Moses as its biological base. An interesting thing we see in this story is that Moses, the only other person besides Moses was Abraham, but these two outstanding figures in the Old Testament were able to talk God out of doing bad things to the children of Israel. The ancient account of the golden calf describes Moses talking to God about not giving the Egyptians anything bad to say about God's motives. And in the end, God is talked out of his anger and he forgives. This story of the golden calf is the foundational story for Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. The day on which the Jews look back and ask for forgiveness for the sins of the last year. The day they admit to being a stiff-necked people, stubborn and opinionated, unwilling to look to the left or the right, ignoring any notions or beliefs that don't fit in with their rigid system of faith and practice. And they say on Yom Kippur, "Forgive us, O Lord, for all of the promises and prohibitions that we should not have declared. And don't hold against us all of the thoughtless allegiances that we never should have acted upon." If this were the New Testament, we would call this a request for forgiveness. We would appeal to God's grace. Now, God bless you. Thank you for the time and attention that you've given to this video. If you find value here, I encourage you to pass it along. But beyond that, stay safe. God bless you, and I'll see you soon. Bye.